From the Heart Media Group newsroom and DeWittDailyNews.com, I'm Ben Hubbard with this expanded morning newscast. Good morning and thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Ben Hubbard. The news is brought to you by Baum Chevy Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters, as well as Connexus, offering fiber internet in Clinton. Click their icon on DeWittDailyNews.com to find out more. The DeWitt County Board Chair is weighing in on the county's Land Use Committee taking up the county's ordinances around data centers. Joe Whitty told the Heart Media Group last Thursday night's DeWitt County Board meeting. The board approved a resolution affirming the fact that data centers are not addressed in the county's ordinances.
All we passed last night was a resolution which affirmed our interpretation of the current state of our ordinances, that data centers are not addressed in our ordinances, therefore they're not allowed. And that's essentially what that resolution did. So it really had no effect. The data centers not being in our ordinance as an allowed use means that the zoning administrator, if she were to get an application for one, she couldn't process that. And, we had some discussion, obviously, in land use last week regarding data centers. But at the end of the day, we're not really taking any action that changes the current state. It was just a resolution affirming what our current state is. You may recall, I think you had a story or two about land use and what was brought up there. And what was discussed in land use last week was a moratorium on data centers, starting a text amendment to look into, what type of requirements would be needed if we were to have a data center, and you get that process running just to get ahead of it. And, there's some concerns with going down that path. I think even in land use, we discussed, well, if it's not in the zoning, it's not allowed. So, I guess it depends on what's the intent of that, going down that path of starting a moratorium when it's not necessary because they're not allowed.
For Whitty, the data center discussion is very premature. He feels opening up that discussion would definitely bring interest for someone looking to develop, but additionally, there is no interest in data centers in DeWitt County currently.
One of my concerns was if we had gone down that path, started a text amendment, created an ordinance for data centers, what do? We're advertising that, hey, we've got an ordinance for data centers. As long as you can meet the criteria, that's an allowed use in our county right now. And I didn't see any need at this point to go down that path because we don't have any businesses reaching out saying that they have an interest in that. Well, let's wait until, somebody approaches us. And at that time, it wouldn't be allowed. At that time, we'd have to go down that path of creating a text amendment and probably have more information shared with us as to how to do that appropriately. So just a lot of discussion. I think there's some concerns with what's being discussed more broadly outside of DeWitt County and the concerns raised with data centers.
While many want the county to begin working on ordinances dealing with data centers, Whitty points to when the county began addressing wind ordinances, and by the time they had a developer ready to build, the ordinances were old and outdated.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm aware of discussions going on. I know that the state just passed a tax, basically froze the tax benefits for a couple of years on these. So, there's a lot of discussion happening more broadly than DeWitt County. And I know that there's concerns, but we're not hearing from anybody this time that they want to pursue something. And the first step would be, if somebody did want to build a data center here, they'd have to approach the county, and we don't have an ordinance for that. So that would start the process, and that's not going to happen quickly. So at that time, we could start gathering information. What if we don't have anything for 10 years, right? Then our ordinance is something that we have to maintain. You got to keep up with the technology. And if you don't, then you've got requirements developed in 2026 to 2026 technology that somebody can meet those. And now we've got I remember the developer for, the wind farm for Tradewind at the time, they argued during some of the discussions on text amendments that, you've got an ordinance. To us, that's an invitation to come to DeWitt County, right? And, that stuck with me. So if we create a data center ordinance, that's kind of advertising that DeWitt County is open for data centers, right?
While many in the community have their concerns regarding data centers, Whitty feels the county shouldn't be completely closed off to the idea, pointing to the power station with its second permit and plenty of land.
Now, on the flip side, if you pass a moratorium, you're saying DeWitt County is closed, at least for now. And there might be good developments. Remember, and I brought this up in land use, we've got a power plant here that has a second permit, right? And a lot of ground and a lake. And so a lot of the concerns around data centers, those may not apply to somebody, in that situation. So I don't think it makes sense to advertise that, hey, we're closed to this. At the same time, I don't think it makes sense to advertise, hey, we've got an ordinance, come look at DeWitt County, when we're not hearing anything. So like I said, it just a lot of discussion, and I just think a lot of that was premature.
At last Thursday night's county board meeting, there were several representatives from Exelon in attendance. Still to come with Whitty this week at the Hart Media Group, another solar developer has submitted an application. Whitty gives an update on that potential project. Coming up shortly on this expanded newscast, St. Louis District Dairy Council explains updated dietary guidelines. The spring weather is giving those who enjoy the parks of DeWitt County the itch to get out. On the WHOW Morning Show Monday, Department of Natural Resources Conservation Police Officer Noah Workman told the Hart Media Group that Weldon Springs and Clinton Lake are getting more and more people as the weather gets nicer.
Been beautiful. Park crowds have increased. Living out of Weldon Springs, I see it every day. The amount of cars, and it was Saturday and Friday. I noticed, I worked outside a little bit in the mornings and noticed a lot more people out there walking. A lot of cars coming in, families, utilizing the pavilion to grill out, hang out, and just in a place to recreate. So it's nice to see. I really do enjoy it. I didn't get out to Clinton Lake this weekend, so I don't know. I can't speak for it, but I assume it had increased traffic as well. It typically does this time of year.
Officer Workman reminds that there was a lot of brush and invasive plants removed from most of the popular trails at the park. While there are signs indicating they are closed, he points out that people are still moving about despite the trails being largely covered up. He simply urges caution with the stumps of plants that might still be there if you choose to go on those trails.
So the trails at Weldon Springs, all but the barn trails, the old barn trails that they burned down, it's still, I believe there's still the blocks, the wood signs saying they're closed. I've seen people walking back there. The reason they were closed at one point was just when they were doing the hydroaxing was to just keep people safe and out of there, because some of those wood chunks were flying yards. They're done with that. The burning is done back there. I've noticed people back there walking. I've not addressed it. I understand people enjoy walking back there. It's a place to walk the dog and get some exercise. I've just kind of turned a blind eye. I don't know any safety issue that's back there. Some spots it's clearly visible. Others you can't really see where the old trail used to be. But I mean, it's all been hydroaxed and flattened, so you can get around back there. Just be careful, because there are some trees that they're hydroaxed where they're still sticking up a little bit, and you'll see somebody go through their boot or shoe or sandal or whatever they're wearing.
In the weeks ahead, the park will open up for the turkey hunting season, and mushroom hunters will be populating the park when the morel mushrooms pop up. We'll have more with Officer Workman on that situation at the lake, as it can often be a point of contention. Additionally, Weldon Springs will be restocked with trout in the next week. We'll have more with Officer Workman on these topics and others later this week from the Hart Media Group. You're listening to the WHOW Morning Show. Let's take a quick break with a word from our sponsors.
March into Baum Chevrolet Buick and march out with a new Chevrolet. This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton and Farmer City. We have over 20 Silverados to fit your daily work needs in 1500, 2500, and 3500s in gas or diesel, all sale priced. Also, check out the Colorado pickup. This size and maneuverability may be another option as well. Chevrolet, together, let's drive. Baum Chevrolet Buick, right from the start.
Experience the power of better connection with Connexus Fiber Internet. Connexus delivers ultra-fast, reliable speeds to keep you connected at the speed of life. Whether you're working from home, streaming your favorite shows, or gaming with your friends, Connexus has you covered. Say goodbye to buffering and dropped calls and say hello to fiber fast internet. Ready to upgrade your connection? Sign up today by clicking the Connexus icon at DeWittDailyNews.com. Nothing connects us like Connexus.
News time is 19 minutes after the top of the hour. You're listening to the WHOW Morning Show. March is National Nutrition Month, and coinciding with that this year is the release of updated dietary guidelines for Americans. Monica Nyman with the St. Louis District Dairy Council explains that these guidelines for healthy living are updated every 5 years by the USDA. While changes can be small, they are all rooted in scientific dietary research.
Yeah, so if you're not aware, the dietary guidelines is kind of just really what it stands for, what the title says. It's really guidelines for Americans that we recommend for healthy living, and these are updated. The recommendations are updated every 5 years, and so, in the nutrition world, we kind of know this, we anticipate it, we look for the specific changes. I don't know that the regular consumer is necessarily waiting in January for the dietary guidelines to come out, but it's really just kind of a structure on how things are built in our different systems and things like that. But every 5 years, these guidelines come out really to help individuals and families kind of meet their nutrition needs and build healthy eating patterns that are realistic and flexible for everyday life. So in every version that's released, we do typically see a few tweaks that are made. And a lot of that is based on the science, right? We talked about getting your information from an accurate source. We're constantly doing research on nutrition. And
Nyman states that the updates focus on eating unprocessed, or as the USDA refers to them, real foods. She says putting this into practice starts with picking the right options at the grocery store.
so sometimes these guidelines change a little bit because now we have research to back these specific changes. So this version does focus on consuming a little bit more like whole food, or they call it real food, compared to kind of processed foods. But other consistent messages are the same that we've kind of heard in previous versions. If you are filling your cart full of foods that are kind of in the perimeter of the case, those are the ones that are going to have the least amount of ingredients. They're going to be the most colorful, like what I mentioned earlier. You walk into the grocery store and usually the produce section is staring at you. And so, filling up your cart with all of those different foods, you go from fruits and vegetables to your meats to your dairy, and those are going to be all of the different types of foods that are going to be the healthiest for you that you want to fill your shopping cart with.
Many of the typical recommendations from the dietary guidelines are reiterated, like proper serving size, prioritizing protein, and getting calcium and other vital nutrients through dairy. According to Nyman, a focus on gut health is new to the guidelines.
Just in general, these are some of the different recommendations. Some of these we've heard over and over and over again. So they're kind of basic recommendations for healthy eating, but there are a few little tweaks. So first, it's eat the right amount for you. Everybody has a different calorie level, kind of based on your activity, your body shape, your metabolism, your age, all different kinds of things like that. This version highlights prioritizing protein at every meal. I'm guessing there are a lot of people that are already getting their protein needs met, but a couple different populations like younger women or the elderly might not be getting their protein needs met. So if you're in one of those populations, kind of pay attention to that. Dairy every single day, the dietary guidelines still recommends 3 servings, but this version is including gut health. Okay, so healthy bacteria in the digestive tract specifically. We always talk about eating lots of fruits and vegetables throughout the day, incorporating healthy fats. So there are some fats that are better for you than others. We always talk about whole grains and getting fiber in. So that has stayed the same. Limiting the high processed foods, lots of added sugars or simple sugars. Those are kind of basic nutrition recommendations that dietitians will tell you, but that is highlighted in the dietary guidelines. And then, not surprising, limiting alcohol and salt. So that's kind of just a general list of what the dietary guidelines recommends for regular consumers.
Nyman notes that these guidelines are not intended for those with chronic conditions or other ailments that may affect or restrict their diet. To learn more about the USDA dietary guidelines for Americans, visit usda.gov. Find out more about the St. Louis District Dairy Council at stldairycouncil.org or find them on Facebook. The Rural Business Transitions webinar series continues this week. The first session was held on March 10th, and another is set for today. The program is a collaboration between the Illinois Institute for Rural Affairs and the University of Illinois Extension. Norm Walzer and Michael Delaney are promoting the effort.
And the idea was to put together in one place some kind of an overview of here are the kind of options you might take a look at. Again, it's not a manual. And if you wanted to do business succession planning, there are plenty of manuals on the internet that you can do, other kinds of things as well. But this is sort of in one place, a person who is interested in saying, well, what are the options for our community? And, what's it going to take to make it happen? This is kind of an easy place to get it.
As Norm said, these aren't necessarily intended to be in-depth training sessions. The agenda here really is to provide overviews of a variety of topics to help people become familiar, at least at a 50,000 foot level, with topics and techniques that they may not be familiar with. If they decide, as Norma said, that they want to go into greater depth, there's plenty of information on each of these individual topics, but our purpose over the course of these 5 sessions really is to help get people through the door and understand what they might be looking at once they're inside the room.
Additional sessions are on April 7th, April 21st, and May 5th. More info or to register at go.illinois.edu/RBT. The Illinois Department of Natural Resources is seeking campground hosts for the 2026 camping season. IDNR's Joe Lankadis says this is for state parks, recreation areas, and historic sites across the state.
They can reach out to their site specifically if they're interested in being a campground host. Call, email, leave a message, and that there's an application, pretty easy process to go through in regards to becoming a host. I know that in my career, it seems like hosts talk to hosts, or people that prospective hosts, and then some people have never thought about it before. We've met a lot of them in the campground, just working with our customers as well. So it's a pretty easy process, but start off with communicating with the site superintendent. Really and truly, when people come to our sites, they come to the campground. Following signage, they go to the campground, and usually this is the first face that they see when they come into a campground is a campground host. Some sites have a check station where the host is at the check station, depending on the day of the week. Then you also have at their sites, they'll put signage there at their sites that this is a campground host site, and please come up to the site. So their duties: checking in campers, answering questions, making sure that they're registered, taking the fees, and then also some light cleaning duties after for the sites when they leave.
More info at dnr.illinois.gov under the State Parks tab. Now for your local obituaries. Ralph Greider, 87, of Anchor, Illinois, passed away at 6:12 a.m. March 21st at his home in Anchor. Calvert Funeral Home in Clinton is in charge of arrangements. Online condolences may be made at calvertmemorial.com. Marla R. Elderton, 76, of Clinton, passed away at 9:58 a.m. March 20th at the Ark at Normal in Normal, Illinois. Calvert Funeral Home in Clinton is in charge of arrangements. Online condolences may be made at calvertmemorial.com. Larry W. Wickenhauser, 84, of Hayworth, Illinois, passed away at home on Tuesday, March 17th. Visitation was held yesterday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., March 23rd, at the Calvert Bangley Bruce Funeral Home in Hayworth. A memorial service was also followed at 1 p.m. with Pastor Carl Johnston officiating. Memorial donations may be made to the Hayworth American Legion or the Hayworth Fire and EMS. Calvert Bangley Bruce Funeral Home of Hayworth assisted the family with arrangements. Get news anytime from your computer or your mobile device at DeWittDailyNews.com. That's DeWitt County's #1 source for news, sports, police blotter, obituaries, and more. Best of all, it's all free all the time at DeWittDailyNews.com.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. President Trump says what he describes as productive talks with Iran could end the war soon. However, Iran denies that many discussions have taken place. Iranian missiles and drones are targeting Israel and Gulf Arab states, while Israeli forces have targeted the Iranian capital of Tehran. Federal investigators are working to determine the cause of the Sunday night deadly crash of a plane and a fire truck. Happened on a runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport. 2 pilots were killed in the crash. On a vote of 54-37, the Senate has confirmed Mark Wayne Mullen as America's new Homeland Security Secretary. And the worst flooding to hit Hawaii in 2 decades has swept homes off their foundations, floated cars out of driveways, left floors, walls, and countertops covered in thick reddish volcanic sludge. More details at srnnews.com.
Just hearing the word IRS can make people break out in a cold sweat. No one wants to deal with the IRS, and now you don't have to. The good news is Legal Tax Defense has been successfully negotiating with the IRS for more than 15 years. It doesn't matter how much you owe, whether it's $5,000 or $5 million. You deserve the best in the business on your side, and that is Legal Tax Defense. Even if you're working with someone else and just want a second opinion, there is no cost or obligation to call. They can prevent levies, liens, wage garnishments, even file back tax returns. And the best news about Legal Tax Defense is they won't take your case unless they know they will reduce or eliminate your tax debt. Call Legal Tax Defense right now for a free, no-risk consultation. 800-292-7875. 800-292-7875. You have nothing to lose, but everything to gain. 800-292-7875.
This is staff meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki with your regional radio forecast. A blend of clouds and sun today with daytime highs approaching 58. Southeasterly winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Mainly cloudy tonight, lows dip down to about 40. A blend of clouds and sun tomorrow, high of 73. Hear weather twice an hour or online anytime at DeWittDailyNews.com. Currently, it's 29 degrees.
From the Hart Media Group Sports Desk, IL Sports Wire, and DeWittDailyNews.com, I'm Ben Hubbard with this local sports report. Alyssa Armstrong allowed an unearned run and went the distance in circle, leading Argenta-Oreana to a 2-1 win over Monticello in non-conference high school softball action on Monday in Argenta. Armstrong outdueled Madison Highland for Monticello. Highland went 4 innings of 2-run ball. 1 was earned. Armstrong struck out 3 and allowed 7 hits. The only Lady Sages run was scored in the 6th inning when Allie Widener scored Emma Lawhead with a double. Sadie Walsh was 2 for 4 for Monticello. Monticello falls to 3-2 overall. They host Tuscola on Tuesday. Mount Pulaski's defensive struggle continued Monday afternoon as an error in the bottom of the 7th inning allowed St. Joseph-Ogden to score the winning run and walk off the Hilltoppers 4-3 in non-conference high school baseball action in St. Joseph. Trevor Ames grounded on the infield, and an error on the play allowed Logan Rosenthal to score the winning run. Ames was 1 for 4 with a double and 2 RBIs. Rosenthal was 2 for 4 for the Spartans. Aaron Voley was 1 for 2 with a double for Mount Pulaski, who drops to 0-2 overall. The Hilltopper season opening loss to Nokomis was marred by a late-game meltdown, including several errors. Luke Martin, Carter Clark, and Tyler Cross had RBIs. The Hilltoppers will look to right the ship when they host Williamsville on Friday. Normal West scored 3 runs in the top of the 4th inning and rallied to its first win of the season, a 6-4 victory over the Chilton County from Clinton, Alabama, in non-conference high school spring break baseball action in Alabama on Monday. Trailing 4-2, Chase Reinhardt doubled in a run to cut the Wildcats' deficit to 4-3. 3 batters later, Sam McCulley singled in a tying run, and an error on the play scored a second run to put Normal West up 5-4 in the opener of 2 from Alabama. Reinhardt was 2 for 5 with a double and 2 RBIs, while McCulley was 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Jack Stedinger and Drake Rumps each had a double, while Charlie Hanks added a triple. In its second game of the day, a 6-run 5th inning propelled Normal West to a 12-5 win over Jasper, Alabama on Monday in high school baseball action in Alabama. McCulley homered to lead off the frame and put the Wildcats up 4-1. Later in the inning, Stedinger walked in a run, and Ty Backman cleared the bases with a single, and a duo of errors scored all 3 base runners to put Normal West up 9-1. McCulley drove in 4 for the game, going 4 for 5. Backman was 4 for 5 with a double and 2 RBIs. Jasper Pomis drove in 2 for Normal Community, going 2 for 4. The Wildcats are 2-2 overall. They are back in action in Alabama on Tuesday morning at 11:30 a.m. opposite Shades Valley. Mattis Buzelis' layup in the final seconds put Chicago ahead to stay, and Colin Sexton came off the bench to score 25 points as the Chicago Bulls beat the Houston Rockets 132-124 on Monday night. Houston's loss, combined with San Antonio's 136-111 win over Miami, allowed the Spurs, who are 54-18, to clinch the Southwest Division. The Bulls are 29-42 and led by as many as 22 points after scoring a season-high 41 points in the first quarter. But Chicago trailed by 4 points late and needed Buzelis' basket with 10.2 seconds remaining to move ahead to stay and post their first win over Houston in the team's last 5 games. Kevin Durant fueled the Rockets' comeback by scoring 15 of his game-high 40 points in the fourth quarter. They fall to 43-28. Durant was 15 of 23 from the field, marking the 9th straight game he shot 50% or better, which is the 3rd longest streak of his career. Rockets coach Ime Udoka was ejected after being assessed his second technical foul of the game with 9.1 seconds remaining. Sexton scored 17 of his points in the first quarter, while Buzelis finished with 23 and Leonard Miller had 17. Josh Giddey, Trey Jones, and Jalen Smith each scored 15 points apiece for the Bulls, with Giddey adding 13 assists. After trailing by 17 at the half, the Rockets took the lead on a Jabari Smith three-pointer with 5 minutes and 56 seconds to play. Alperen Sengun scored 33 for the Rockets, and Amen Thompson had 23 points. Jalen Smith, who was listed as questionable after missing the Bulls' last game with an ankle injury, tied his season high in points and finished with 6 rebounds and 2 blocks off the bench, despite being limited to 26 minutes. The Rockets had won 2 straight after inserting second-year guard Reed Shepherd into the starting lineup. Shepherd shot 3 for 14 from three-point distance. The Rockets visit Minnesota on Wednesday, while the Bulls visit Philadelphia on Wednesday. Chicago Cubs outfielder Seiya Suzuki will start the season on the injured list as he recovers from a sprained right knee sustained while playing for Japan in the World Baseball Classic. The Cubs had previously ruled Suzuki out of Thursday's opener against Washington. Manager Craig Counsell said Monday that Suzuki is heading to the injured list after spraining the posterior cruciate ligament in the knee in Japan's loss to Venezuela on March 14th in the WBC quarterfinals. The 31-year-old Suzuki walked gingerly to the dugout after a headfirst slide into second base when he was caught stealing in the first inning. Suzuki was replaced in center field after the end of that half inning. Suzuki is going into the final season of an $85 million 5-year contract. He has hit .269 with 87 home runs and 269 RBIs in 532 games for the Cubs, including a team-leading 103 RBIs with 32 homers in 2025. The Cubs are adding veteran Michael Conforto to the 40-man roster ahead of the opener. Conforto was a non-roster invitee to spring training. The 33-year-old hit .273 this spring. Conforto batted just .199 with 12 home runs last season for the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Cardinals are entering the 2026 season with low expectations, as the plan throughout the offseason was clear in building toward the future. It might not be a radical one, but this is one of the few rebuilds in the history of the storied organization. Expected to be at the forefront of the next contending Cardinals team is top prospect JJ Wetherholt, a middle infielder who was drafted 7th overall in 2024 out of West Virginia. That news starts on opening day, as Wetherholt will break camp with the major league team out of spring training, the team announced Monday. The expectation is that Wetherholt will play second base with stud defender Mason Wynn at shortstop and possibly even be the everyday leadoff man. Last season, Wetherholt played in 62 games at the AA level before 47 with AAA Memphis. He hit .306, .421, and .510 with 28 doubles, 2 triples, 17 homers, 59 RBIs, 82 runs, and 23 stolen bases. He struck out 73 times with 72 walks in 496 plate appearances. In 15 games with the big league Cardinals in spring training, Wetherholt hit .212, .386, .394 with 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 6 runs, and 2 steals. He drew 9 walks in 44 plate appearances, which is always a good sign. Wetherholt won't carry the burden alone, but he'll be one of the more exciting reasons to watch the Cardinals this season, as winning takes a back seat to player development. He enters the season as one of the favorites for National League Rookie of the Year. In scores from around the NBA last night, the Indiana Pacers beat the Orlando Magic 128-126, while the Detroit Pistons took down the LA Lakers 113-110. The Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Philadelphia 76ers 123-103, and the San Antonio Spurs beat the Miami Heat 136-111. The Atlanta Hawks routed the Memphis Grizzlies 146-107, while the Toronto Raptors beat the Utah Jazz 143-127. The Golden State Warriors beat the Dallas Mavericks 137-131 in overtime, while the Portland Trailblazers romped the Brooklyn Nets 134-99, and the LA Clippers beat the Milwaukee Bucks 129-96. Just a single game in the NHL last night. That was the Ottawa Senators beating the New York Rangers 2-1. Get highlights of your local high school program by finding IL SportsWire on your preferred social media platforms, and get local sports anytime at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Let's check Ag News on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLawes Yonke. Illinois Farm Bureau members were in D.C. recently for the IFB Leaders to Washington trip. In some cases, talking about the need for better certainty. The 2018 Farm Bill has been extended 3 times, with another expiration upcoming at the end of this September.